StoryWeaver Games presents a Kickstarter production by Duck Joe and Ray Duell. Slaughter, the horror movie making card game.
Welcome to Slaughter, the horror movie making card game. And the goal of this game is, it's part role-playing game, part tabletop game, but the main goal is to make a horror movie that you'd want to tell your friends about. Now, one of the things that happens in horror movies, which is very different from a regular role-playing game, is the goal is not to keep the characters alive, it's to kill them off. You want to make them squirm a bit. You want to make them, die in gloriously horrible ways. But ultimately, you want to get through most of the cast. There'll be a few left at the end of the movie, maybe. So with that said, I'm going to go through how you actually play the game. What we decided to do is create a game where it's very fast to take a member of the cast, one of the extras in a movie, and make them the focus of the camera. In other words, make them a player character. And we do that by using cards, because we find that in previous games, everyone would want to write up a deep background of the character, and they're only going to last 5 minutes. Don't do that. So we have a whole bunch of character cards here, and that's your cast. So when we start the movie, we'll choose who's going to be in this particular movie, who the cast is. And I think for 3 players here, given that this is a zombie movie, we'll probably have about 6 to 8 characters, depending on how we go. So you put the characters out there, and we'll just throw a few out. And when you want to have a character, which is whenever your other character has died, you reach out and you touch one. Whoever gets to touch the card first, they can take that character, so it's a bit snap. Yeah, wait, I got it first. So on the back of the card, there will be certain rules that give this character some sort of trope. It's the advantage that the character has. The soldier. Let's do this. Let's do this. Okay. You've had military training. I know my voice acting is not great. Let's do this. I was in the damn war, damn it. Time to put it to use. So she gets a 6-sided dice extra in her dice pool whenever she's shooting. Now, when you take that card, you can then take 1 talent and 1 flaw. You can look through the deck and choose whichever one you want, or you can just take them randomly. I do know that some people like to take them randomly because it makes them have wild, crazy characters, and other people, they want a little bit more control. So let's say that your soldier, who you have put on your... Intuitively. No, that's correct. Put them face up like that. It's good. See,
Roll side up, yep.
She knows the way out. And this card has another rule on it, which says you know the quickest escape route. You get an 8-sided dice whenever you are navigating an escape. So you look there and you figure out what that rule is. But notice there's a difference here. This is a black 6-sided dice, and this one is white and on a blood splat. That means in order to use that effect, you have to slaughter the card. So once you've done that, once you've taken that extra 8-sided dice for your dice pool, you can't use that card anymore. It's gone. You also take a flaw card. And in this case, I'm just going to draw randomly a card from here. Let's go for Conspiracy Nut. Oh, excellent. There we go. So you're a Conspiracy Nut, and this card has some rules. It has actually got 2 separate rules. One which says a D4 for any roll. Any pool when you're trying to find evidence to support your claims of conspiracy. But you can go all the way up to a D8 if you slaughter the card, and that's to prove your conspiracy. So you can see that these rules are actually all about guiding the narrative of the game. So it's your choice whether you want to select these at random or choose them to build the character that you want. But really, you can make a character in about 30 seconds. There's one more card. This is where I mess with you. So you are the players in our wonderful, you're basically the actors. I'm the director. So I get to mess with the script, and I do that through these cards called hooks, and they're very powerful cards. And they are the dirty little secrets. They're the things that you don't want other people to know. They're the special abilities that you might have that once you reveal them, they would be a problem, let's say. And I don't give these out at random. I look at what your character, and as I think, how can I mess with the script? How can I drive the storyline along? So in this case, I might give you this one. Now, I would show it to you. Sometimes I'll actually give you 2 cards and let you choose one. But you read that, and then you put it face down until you want to use it. So no one knows what one of these hooks you've got.
Except you.
Except me and them. And sometimes I forget, but that's okay. But the player gets to chew it. choose it. Now, you can see this particular one is taboo. You've got a secret that's, you're sick. Tell the director why, and you actually don't have to tell me that until you decide in the narrative of the movie that it makes sense for you to reveal that. And that will give you a whopping D12 on it.
Okay.
So, I've been talking about these dice and how they work. The way that scenes are resolved in this game is a little bit different. It's not like, say, a Dungeons and Dragons where every blow is calculated and every action has multiple dice rolls within it. No, this is a horror movie, and it's very cinematic. So what we do when we're coming to a point in a scene where the whole scene needs to be resolved, there's mayhem going on. Everybody, I would call the challenge, and then everyone states what they're trying to achieve in that scene. We call that the stake. So, for example, let's say your character is in the lab with all the computer equipment, and you're trying to break into the computer equipment. You're a conspiracy nut, so you decide that you're going to use that card, but you decide that you're actually going to seduce the hacker with your fetish gear, and so you can use both of those cards.
Okay.
Now here's the other thing, you always build your dice pool. And a dice pool in this game is obviously a collection of dice by using mind, body, or soul. But in this case, because you're trying to seduce the hacker to do the job, it would be your soul. Obviously, anything to do with influencing people, fighting off demons, not being possessed, all that sort of stuff is soul. Body, running, jumping, climbing trees, and mind is thinking through stuff. So you would get a D4, since that's uncovered, the smallest dice that's uncovered, there. Then you would go, I'm going to use my conspiracy. So you would get a D8 for that one.
Yeah.
So we'd add that there. And you would get that whopping D12. So you're going to try and seduce. Now, if there was anyone else in the scene, you would also say what you're doing. So you might say, no, I'm going to try and seduce the geek, and then we all roll the dice. In that particular instance, you roll your dice. I roll whatever dice I've got for the various other characters that are in the scene, usually the ones that are working against you. Everyone else rolls their dice. Whoever has the highest number, not the total, the highest number wins. And the number of dice higher than anyone else's dice means how successful that is.
These dice don't explode, do they?
No, they don't explode. Heads explode, dice don't. So you get the idea of that. Now there is one little exception to this rule, which is, let's say I decide that our hacker is in fact infected with the zombie virus.
Uh-oh.
And he's about to become zombie, because that would be a classic scene. I'm trying to seduce him. Ah! So I'm going to roll to see, my stake in the scene is to have him eat you. Your role is to have him not turn
and be seduced.
So I roll my dice and, what luck there. I actually got an 8 as well. That means that we remove these 2 dice. That's called a complication. That is something that the director will play on everybody. That is basically the twist, the plot, something else that can happen. Now that just leaves our other dice pools here, and you can see in this case, our hacker has 1, because he's got a 6, which is higher than your next one, which is 3. And so you go to give him a big, beautiful kiss on the mouth, and he bites your lips off. By the way, the extras are in the movie, and you can use them. So let's say you're kissing this hacker, trying to seduce him, and he's pulling your mouth off. Somebody else could say, oh, the slacker is going to dose him down with bong water, or something like that. You get the idea.
Yeah.
And for that, if you can bring in one of those folks into the game, they get a big 4. So that would add to your dice pool if you're controlling that extra for that scene. Obviously, the director gets to have the ability to say, no, that's not what's going to happen. I get veto powers. I'm the clipping room floor as well.
But if the highest successful dice is a 6, they really can't affect it because they only get a D4.
That's right. But since we're building the dice pools all simultaneously without telling everyone exactly, all we do is tell our stake, build our dice pools, everyone rolls, and based on the outcome of those, we'll narrate something that makes sense for that set of outcomes of dice.
Okay.
There will usually be one winner and quite often a lot of complications as well. Now that was a pretty extreme case, but that's a good example of it. The next thing that happens is you would take injury. So let's say this is actually what happened and the zombie's biting your face. Now, he's only just starting to turn, so I'm not going to give him any special effects or extra injury capabilities. He's just pulling your lips off. You would take an injury, and then you would read the injury card that goes onto your injury pile.
Okay.
And so you are bruised. You got pumpled
Bruised
out.
lips.
You got bruised lips, puffy lips. Excellent.
Bruce lips.
Bruised lips. Okay. So that means that your body can't be more than a D10, which doesn't actually affect you.
Yep.
But it also says you draw a madness. Now, because we're playing the zombie apocalypse deck, pretty much every time you take an injury from this deck of cards, and there are different decks for different genres, you will get a madness as well. Often madness will kill you and the rest of the team faster, because in zombie movies, it's not usually the zombies that do all the killing. It's the fun of watching all of the cast members turn on each other.
Yeah. Okay.
So you'd also take a madness card. Throughout the game, you might take more injuries. Let's say you got stabbed by somebody because they thought that you were turning into a zombie. You would take 2 cards, 2 more injuries, which will give you a 2 and a 3. You only ever pay attention to the top one, the highest level one that you have got.
Okay.
And that means that your madnesses, likewise, you'd also draw 1 and 2 madnesses for that. You've got crippling phobia, and again, you can read the instructions.
But every
of those.
time you get injured, it goes up a level.
Exactly. So you draw the next one, the next one, the next one along. And the reason why you actually do take cards, let's say you took 4 injuries and 1 hit, which is not impossible in this game. You still draw the 4 cards, but you only need to pay attention to that. The reason for that is if this lower deck runs out and somebody's getting their first injury, it's going to be a lot worse, because the violence accelerates in horror movies that way. As we get close to the end of the movie, things start getting more and more compressed. Make sense?
Makes sense.
Yep.
Okay. There's one other thing that will happen in the movie. Actually, there's a few more things, but let me go through some of the fun stuff. The first one is that I can play 1 or more scene cards. Very rarely you'd get more than 2 scene cards played at a time. The scene cards are special cards that will drive a particular theme for the scene that the director wants. So, for example, at the start of a zombie movie, often it's what we call patient 0. So I'd play that. And that means that this particular dice here means that once it's tapped, once we've used it, whoever's using it gets a D12, big. But because it's got the clipper board on it, means that only the director can use it. And literally this one means that somebody is going to get eaten, and if I get to kill them, if they die in this scene, instead of getting 1 death point, I'll explain death points in a second, you get 2. Death points are really important in this game. They're actually the mechanism by which you're encouraged to get killed. But let's use another one. Let's go for this one here, the chase. Let's say you're running through and there's a big chase scene, everyone's running around, screaming and so forth. This is a little bit like Snap. If you're narrating what you're doing and you go, got it. Again, first person to touch the card, you can get the bonus from this card, provided it fits. This one is, as the hall closes in, steal 1 dice from another player character in the scene and add it to your dice pool, and you get a D10. So what that basically means is that you screw someone over as you run away.
Yeah, push someone over in the path of a zombie
Exactly,
to keep yourself
but you
safe.
have to narrate what you're doing and go
Yes.
bang.
Yeah.
Okay, and we don't normally have too many fights over that, but if there is, the director gets the final call. So death points. Death points are represented by these little counters. Whenever you are involved in another character's death, in fact, for every character that you are involved in a character's death, you get a death point. And the death point initially goes into the unspent pile there. At any time in the game, you can spend a death point to do one of 2 things. You can remove an injury that your character has. Doesn't remove the madness, just the injury. So, basically it's you sucking it up, putting a bandage on, whatever it is, pulling the spike out of your chest, whatever that is. Or you can get a replacement hook card. And that's useful if you've already spent your hook card. So this is for characters who've survived a little bit longer than they should have, and they want another reason to mess with people.
Okay.
However, when your character dies, you also have the opportunity when you're making a new character, in other words, when you're reaching out there and grabbing, let's say this character has now died because he's become a zombie, she's become a zombie, you say, I'm now the pure, which is basically our last girl, in this case last guy character. You can actually take one of those unspent death points and move it over to one of those mind, body or soul. All of the spent death points come back to unspent, but when you're creating the character, you could say, I want my pure to be really, really physically tough. He's been working out. So now,
Purely.
whenever you do their
nothing
body,
do something with
you're
it.
rolling a D8. So that's the lowest uncovered point there. So you improve your characters not by... You improve your cast. You can't actually improve your character, but you can improve the cast. Think of Aliens, where Ripley doesn't really enter the movie until about 10, 12 minutes in, but by the end of the second movie, with all of her friends being murdered left, right, and centre,
She's a powerful.
she's running around in a mecha suit beating up alien queens. You get the idea. The survivors get stronger and stronger in horror movies. Very much a last girl trope, and very much a zombie movie trope.
Did you know James Cameron actually has that loader in his house?
He has that loader in his house?
Yeah.
What, for helping with yard work, or just in case he's worried about alien queens coming down?
He collects souvenirs from the movies he's worked on.
That's awesome. Now, there are a couple of other types of cards that we didn't go into. The props. In this game, the Game Master is not going to tell you everything which is in a scene. If you think something should be there, just narrate it there. That's okay. But occasionally there'll be props which are important props. So a good example of this would be in Evil Dead, the chainsaw arm, and that counts as a prop. And the prop's like any other card. If I give you a prop, it has a narrative bonus effect that may either on this one. So you've got the security override key. That's going to help you get into a place. It could be that you've got an improvised weapon, like a set of shears. Actually, it doesn't have to be related to the picture on the card. You could just say, improvised weapon, I've got a trash can and a baseball bat, whatever it is. But it becomes a focus of the camera. It's an important thing that you have. And throughout the game, you'll get more and more of those. When a character dies, the director will point out where that newly introduced thing goes, or they'll remove them from the game. Yes, you can kill other characters off to get them. The other cards which you may get in this game are special effects cards, and these are the way that you build a monster. Now, a horde is actually just one big monster. Now, you can beat up the horde, you can reduce it and so forth, but the horde might have special abilities. For example, the horde might have a pack leader, and it might be mutoid. I'm just drawing these at random, which means there's a thing that's controlling them that will make them a little bit more intelligent, and they mutate whenever they get hit. It could be that a lot of them are to do with things such as, this one might be amphibious zombies. Or it's a flesh shredder. When they hit you, your skin and bones come flying off in any armor as well. So the role of the director is to create these monsters, and often on the fly, to suit the movie scene that's happening. So you'll often see me shuffling cards. Now, let's say one of you get infected in a zombie movie. If we're playing zombies that can infect, well then, when you turn, you'll probably be getting special effects cards. If you want to keep that character, sometimes people say, no, I don't want to be the bad guy, and they'll hand it to the director. I just go nuts with them. Other times, no, let's just see how it goes. It is quite okay to have player versus player killing going on. Well, actually, not really player versus player. It's player character versus player character. Absolutely, especially in a zombie movie, it's absolutely likely to happen.
Yeah.
So, we all get that? That's the rules of the game?
Yeah, cool.
I did have one question about the props.
Yes.
If a character dies, can you pick up the props from them?
You can say that you're doing that. The director has the veto. Right. So if I want to remove a prop from the game, so for example, let's say somebody is firing the big ass machine gun, and they get stormed by the zombie horde, or the aliens, whatever. And somebody says, I want to pick up that weapon. I go, yeah, really? Okay, into the horde you go. So I could make it a challenge. Or it could be, you're next to the person, I'm going to pick up the gun, fine, but it's out of ammo. So I can, the director has the ability to mess with that. Now the reason that that's up to the director's discretion is movies very quickly, if a trope is used too many times in a movie, it gets boring and repetitive. This is not a mini-series, this is a movie. We might have a sequel. Usually we'll have a sequel.
Slaughter! The horror movie making card game! Shock your friends! Terrify your loved ones! Be prepared for the ultimate in terror!